So, what about murder? Coming right up. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Common Sense Logic and Reasoning. As always, I want to say thank y'all for joining me today. So, as y'all know, Black people are always deflecting away from personal responsibilities. They're always looking for doing any and everything they can to try to blame as much negativity surrounding Black people on the system as possible. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be fatherlessness. It could be poverty, poor academic output. It could be everything they can find. Crime rates, high crime rates. They try to find every which way to blame the system for this and not take personal responsibility for this. Now, one of the ways that they do to try to deflect away from personal responsibilities is the over-policing excuse. You've heard this. Basically, they claim that there are more police put in the Black community. So because there are more police in the Black community, that means that it increases the likelihood of that police officers are to find a crime, and thus makes the crime rates go up. This is the argument that they make. Now, I will give a small amount of merit to this. The idea, the theory that there's, more police officers are more likely to capture crime. I'll give a little small merit to that. The problem is that it's overshadowed by all the rest of the evidence and the data and reality. Okay. Now, one of the problems with this narrative of over-policing is that police officers actually act as a deterrent. They serve as a deterrent to crime. In other words, when people see police officers, they have a tendency to not want, or less tendency to want to do something illegal than not. And I remember the movie Juice. Spoiler alert for anyone who's never seen the movie Juice with Tupac and Omar Epps. There was a part in the movie where they wanted to project themselves as bad, so they decided to go rob a store. Now, one of the things that they did in the store is they cased it out, and they saw that there was a patrol that passed by every 5 minutes or so. So what they did was they hid out around the store, waited for the security to pass, the patrol car to go by, then they ran in and robbed the place. Now, of course, if you watch the movie, you know that Tupac shot the person, the clerk, and then they had to hide and wait for the next patrol to go by before they rushed out and left. Again, now, why were they waiting on security? Imagine if there was more, instead of every 5 minutes, there was a car that rolled by every minute. It would have been extremely difficult for them to try to pull it off. So those extra police, or that extra policing, would have been a deterrent to them trying to rob their store. And then we also have the issue of the National Guard. Everywhere the National Guard went, Washington, DC, Memphis, wherever they put the National Guard, crime rate immediately dropped. Again, people in Memphis were uploading, and really everywhere in DC as well, but in Memphis, they were uploading videos saying how they never felt safer in their town. Saying that they haven't heard any gunshots. They haven't seen any jackassery happening going on at night and in general. Because the National Guard served as a deterrent to that behavior. And then they always say security. Well, there's more security cameras and stuff like that, surveillance. Well, surveillance is also, and security is also advertised as a means to deter. Again, when the store hires an off-duty cop in front of the store, the whole purpose is that cop serves as a deterrent to deter anyone from trying anything. So if there's more police officers, then there should be more deterrent to a crime. So then why the crime rate's higher then? Now, but to the story, the question of this video, then what about murder though? So how does over-policing in the Black community cause high murder rates? That's the question that really truly doesn't make any sense. Black people in America, we are 13% of the population, but as a race, we're responsible for almost 50%, 51% of all the murders. And I'll always say that that's more murders than the other 87% of the population. So wouldn't over-policing be a deterrent to that behavior? If it really truly was over-policing? How is over-policing responsible for the excessive amount of violence and murder in the Black community? It just doesn't make any sense that they make that argument that, well, is over-policing causing high crime rates. Again, I would say that for some things, yeah, you can say that police officers are more likely to capture things. However, I also say to that police officers aren't detectives. They're not going around looking for crime. If they happen to stumble upon a crime that's happening while they pass by, sure. But they're not detectives going around looking for crime. They just patrol. So as I said, police officers are deterrent. So then obviously it's the behavior of the people. Okay, over policing is just an excuse clause to try to explain things away. But once again, Black folks just absolutely refuse to accept any personal responsibility. And that's not Black people, that's Black victims. Black victims are all the ones that are always looking for some type of way to blame white supremacy for everything. Clearly, white supremacy and over policing is not responsible for this. It's Black people's behavior. But they will continue to try to deflect and find all these excuses. Anyway, however, if you ever hear cries of over policing, well, now you have the argument to destroy that nonsense narrative. Whenever it comes before your way, and I guarantee you, they will have no argument against this. No matter, nothing they can come up with can explain how, in spite of all this alleged over policing, that the murder rate is high among Black people. They can't explain that away. Anyway, y'all, as always, until next time.